Depression can cause you to do crazy things or nothing at all. And a lot of the times, depression is what keeps us in our addiction. And I want to explain sort of my journey, a little bit about it. I was very heavy as a child, and my mother put a lot of emphasis on looks back in my days. It was important to look beautiful. My mom had my sister in all kinds of pageants. She was my younger sister. She was blonde and blue-eyed and, perfect, perfect skin, perfect weight, perfect everything. Brain, she made A's. And so she was elevated on a pedestal. They were proud of my sister. And so what happened was I saw it from a distance. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to show you all one day I can be just as perfect, if not better. And in my mind, I thought those were good goals. So I set out to lose weight. I set out to get a man. I set out to create this perfect life. I also lost a bunch of weight. I won't say how right now. I will get into that later, into my more details of my journey later. But basically, I got to where I wanted to be in the way my body looked. And I was happy and I was proud. But something didn't happen that I was expecting when I got to my goal weight. And that was something. I was expecting something to happen, like, well, what's supposed to happen now that I'm perfect? Like I would look around and I'd be like, okay, I've got a bunch of guys looking at me, but so what? Who are these men? I don't care. Who are they that I'm not? So then instead of trying to become one with a man, I was in almost like a competition, not with them and not a jealousy, but it was almost like I have to keep them to keep my perfect life. To make it look like weight doesn't matter, I had to keep a man. And that was besides a lot of these other issues that I had, but mainly looks. Looks was my thing. It was my fire. I wanted to make sure my body was beautiful. And I set out to do that, whether it was with diet medicine and working out, whatever. I worked out. I remember a time when I worked out 4 hours a day. I was a 00, and I still couldn't suck my stomach in deep enough. It's never enough. I've always been that person that it's never enough. So when I started packing on the weight again, so basically I got comfortable with myself because I was like, okay, I'm skinny. I can have anybody I want, but now I don't want all the people that are wanting me. Now that I can have anybody that I want, I don't want anybody, because it was effort. It was constant. I was constantly having to put effort into a relationship, and I didn't like that. And so I went back, focused on myself, and I began to eat again, and I gained weight. And because of that weight, other issues were caused. I ended up figuring out what had caused me pain since I was 17 years old, and I began taking painkillers. And because of these painkillers, my life was even better, because the painkillers go in and they give you this rush of happy, feel-good feeling no matter how trashy your life is. So you can have, it's like you're famous in your own world when you take your drug. And that is what I lived for. And outside of that drug, I would have just been a depressed person staying in bed all day, not wanting to do anything, because now I'm older. Now the work I did as a kid to get my body in shape, it's going to take double that. And I could barely do it then. So now what? My brain starts going into all these negative things. And then it leads me to taking pills or my drug. And the reason why I'm putting this out there is because I know a lot of people, a lot of addicts go through this. I watched the show once. It was called Infliction or Inflicted, I think. It was on a series on TV. And there's this guy in there who stays in bed all day. They can't diagnose him with what it is, but he's severely depressed, and you can see it in his face. It's not like something And depression can cause body pain, but you can see it in his face that he's depressed. And you can see he had used to be a bodybuilder. He had gotten hurt, got on pain meds, and then this started happening to him. And I'm not judging anyone, because I know addiction doesn't judge. It just picks a person, and that's who it affects. So I loved this guy. He doesn't even know this, but I loved him. Like I could see we had a kindred spirit. And but I started focusing on why people are addicts. And if they look back in their lives, there's a failure that happened, or in their eyes, it's a failure. And I think a lot of also my addiction was I wasn't young anymore. I wasn't beautiful, or I didn't think I was beautiful. I could never get to where I really wanted to be ever. And even if I could, who cares? Then what? So it was this depth of depression that I can't understand. So a mental disorder can definitely affect your addiction. So it's very important to get that in check. I fought on getting on any sort of medication that I had to take daily that I didn't feel the effects of right away. I'm one of those instant gratification type of people. And so when I was diagnosed with depression, while I was going through the MAP program, the doctor put me on Wellbutrin. And I'd gotten to this place in my life where I had just finally given up. I was like, okay, I am depressed. I noticed it, but yet I was in denial about it because my mom had been depressed and I didn't want to be like my mom. And I finally just accepted the fact that, okay, maybe I do have a problem. Maybe that is where all of these eating disorders are coming from, or drug addictions are coming from. And so he gave me the Wellbutrin, and he told me, he's like, it's going to take a couple weeks for this to start working, but I guarantee you, just do it. Just try it, take it, and you'll see a difference. It takes a couple weeks, but then you'll see a difference, I promise. And so that's exactly what I did. I went and got it filled. I took it for 2 weeks. I took it for a month. It takes 14 days to get into a habit. And until you get into the habit of taking something, you won't see the effects. And same thing as hair, skin, and nail vitamins. If you take those, it takes a month, 2 months before you finally see the difference in your hair growth. Same thing with the chemicals in your brain, the way they go up and down before you actually can feel and see and notice a difference. It takes a while. But once you notice it, you realize you really are depressed and you really do need this medication. It wasn't until I got on that medication until that I was able to start coming down in my Suboxone. And it really affected me in a way. I was very upset with myself because I thought, okay, so I'm on Suboxone. I can get off of it fast. No, don't try it. It just makes you it gives you this sense of, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this. I don't like the way it feels, so I'm not going to do it. Instead of just doing it in a slow taper, and if you are an addict, it really ticks me off at doctors, but who are on the MAP program who say this sort of crap. Well, it's an addiction. You're an addict. You're going to have to get help for your addiction. And it's part a mental problem, but yet it's also a pill problem. You got a doctor who doesn't know about emotional issues prescribing medication for the physical issues that go along with the mental issues, and they don't know quite how to combine the two together and actually come up with a program that actually works for addiction. Because I took Suboxone wrong. I will admit, I abused Suboxone, and it does give you a high. If you take more of it than you're supposed to, it gives you a sort of a kick, or for me it did, and everybody's different. But I had to get to the place where that kick, I knew that kick wasn't going to get anything better. Was as good as it's going to get. That's sort of how Suboxone works. With heroin and the other opiates, you sort of get really high and you feel like you can get there again and you can get higher. There's no plateau on the high level. With Suboxone, there is a plateau. You get to a certain level, you can't get any higher, and then that's it. And so you realize, okay, I can't really abuse this drug and get to where I want to get to where with it. Sorry, I know that didn't make sense. I can't really use Suboxone and get high and use it like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and use it like prescribed. And that's sort of how it can begin to work. But I just wanted to throw this video out there. If you have issues with depression, if you find yourself dazing into outer space and somebody has to snap their fingers in front of you to wake you up out of whatever you're in, that's a sign of depression. I didn't know that, and I've been doing that since I was really, really little. And when I was little, I don't mean I was overweight, like chubby. I mean I was 319 pounds at 17 years old or more. And weight wasn't a thing to me. Food was. And so all my life I've had addiction issues, but this is something that I want to talk about in the way of drug habits. When something is so good, how do we stop ourselves from wanting to be that good, from feeling that good? Because once you know it is out there and you're capable of feeling it, then it's like, how am I supposed to not want to go to heaven? It's sort of like that. Like, how can you expect me not to want to go to heaven? And so everyone who's trying to get us clean is an enemy almost. And that's how you sort of have to look at it when you're coming at an addict. And the reason I'm doing these anonymous videos right now is because I'm in the healing aspect and I don't want people to know it just yet. I'm being wise in my recovery. So I hope this helps someone who needs help with addiction. Let's be friends. Let's talk about it in the comments. I have a passion for addicts. So if you are one and you're out there and you feel alone and you feel like you don't have someone that you can talk to, leave me a comment and I'll talk to you. Let's talk, I'm here for you. I got you. I know what you feel like. I know that feeling of feeling hopeless when you run out of meds early and no one cares. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like. And if you're there, leave me a comment. Let's talk. Like, don't keep it to yourself. I can't be healthy for anyone.